It's a very complex population of voters. Generally I try to divide them into three groups. One of those groups is Latino Catholics, which are currently about 1/3 of American Catholics. And we're going to see about 70% of them voting for Barack Obama in November. The next third, and each of these groups is roughly a third, the next third I call intentional Catholics, and these are the Catholics that are more weekly Mass attending Catholics that have kind of intentionally embraced the teachings of their church in a conscious way. Those Catholics, we're going to see about 60% probably going for Romney in November. And the last group, what I call cultural Catholics, these are Catholics that probably don't think about their faith in that same kind of intentional way. For them, it's more like an ethnicity that they belong to, that they were born into, that they want their children and grandchildren to belong to. That is kind of the old kind of Catholicism in the United States. That's the Catholicism of our old ethnic neighborhoods, the Irish neighborhoods, the Polish neighborhoods, the Italian neighborhoods. And those Catholics, those cultural Catholics, are about evenly split in this election. And I think that it's really there that is the kind of the battleground for the Catholic vote, going after those cultural Catholics. With some very few exceptions, the candidate who wins the Catholic vote wins the election. One interesting case, for example, Al Gore, that won the Catholic vote in 2000, won the election as well, at least not in electoral college terms, but in actual vote count. So yeah, the Catholic vote is a good bellwether for how the election is going to go overall, and I expect that to be the case, this November as well. So the candidate that wins the Catholic vote, and I think that cultural Catholic portion of it is the critical part. That's going to be the candidate that probably wins the election as well. One of the interesting things about the Catholic vote is that it's not evenly dispersed across America. In fact, surprisingly, it's especially focused in key battleground states. And so states like Ohio and Pennsylvania and Florida and Iowa and Colorado, states that are critical battleground states, are also states with very large Catholic populations where the Catholic vote is especially important. And so even if we're thinking about the election just simply in terms of the Electoral College map, winning the Catholic vote is critical because of where they are geographically located in the United States. President Obama has championed public policies that really address the needs of America's poor, the needs of America's working class, especially as it relates to life issues, surprisingly. And so, I think that appeals to Catholics. I mean, if we're providing, through the Affordable Care Act, better health care for all, I'm convinced that that's going to, pay dividends for, the quality of life and, honestly, for life itself. I have a hard time with the Democratic Party's sort of blanket endorsement of a pro-choice position. And yet at the same time, when I look at the policies outside of the abortion arena, when I look at things like Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act and community health centers and public housing programs, these are all programs that are proven to have a good impact in lowering the abortion rates in the United States. So I'm actually convinced that because of those social policies, and I should say also because I'm convinced that the Republican Party is not really serious about actually overturning Roe v. Wade or ending abortion on demand in the United States. I think then that it makes much more sense to support the Democrats on this issue. I clearly don't think that Obama is having a war on religion at all. I do have some issues with the administration in regards to the rollout of the HHS mandate. I realize and I applaud their efforts to make accommodations. But I would have to say that I would prefer an HHS mandate that found another way to provide contraception to American women other than forcing religious institutions to operate against their faith. That said, we've got a year or so to sort all of this out, and every indication that I've got from working with the administration is that they are looking for a way, to resolve this issue, to find a way to provide contraception to all the women in America who want it, without, perhaps, compromising religious liberty for, those religious institutions. And I'm actually pretty hopeful that it can be worked out after the election. I'm surprised that the White House doesn't run with this right up front, but one of the things that I think is very appealing about President Obama to American Catholics, can be very appealing to American Catholics, is his extraordinary religiosity. I've had the good fortune to have attended a couple of the White House Easter prayer breakfasts, and once the reporters are out of the room, and maybe I understand why they're not in the room when this happens. Once the reporters are out and the cameras are turned off, and the president talks about his faith, I mean, this guy has a deep and passionate faith. And, he talks about his religion in a way that really, it touched my soul, and I think that it would touch Catholic souls too.